Just getting this recording up and going. I wanted to come and give a spontaneous live. I wanted to share some thoughts. I've been doing a lot of research on the Tao Te Ching. By research, I mean reading it, listening to people who speak about it, doing my own meditations, and then going back and listening to, there's an audiobook that I love listening to. And of the Tao Te Ching specifically. And the reason why that's important is because who I show up as today is not the same person that was yesterday. Right? It's the idea that no one can step into the same river twice, because it's not the same river and it's also not the same person. And when we come back to that same information, when we've grown, when we've learned new things, we can learn to intuit things a little bit deeper. And I find that the Tao is written, I got this idea from Alan Watts. It's so much like a joke, right? And not meant as to make fun of something, but like a joke in the sense that a joke, you either get it or you don't, right? It just happens. Right? Somebody tells a punchline and you just react, or you don't. And the way it's written, it can be written in a way where we often have to build ourselves up to that intuitive ability to understand, right? This wisdom that's being said. And I was reading, somebody, I was watching I think it was an interview. Somebody said something about untrustworthiness. I was like, wait a minute, I've read something in the Tao about untrustworthiness, about people becoming untrustworthy. I remember it being very profound, and I just intuited I should look it up. So I did. And, this is speaking of somebody in government. And now, does this sound familiar? It says, if you don't trust the people, you make them untrustworthy. So, do you feel that CNN, MSNBC, Fox News trust the people as they viciously condemn the people or ridicule them for whatever sort of actions that they don't like, or that are actions of people on the wrong side of the tracks? And what happens if we don't trust people? Well, we can't help but project. We can't help but to project our model of the world onto the world. That's just simply how it is. Max Planck, a contemporary of Einstein, said that everything is consciousness. Consciousness is primary. And if we're operating in a space where we can't see beyond the level of awareness that we have, well, we get so often caught up in our own worries, our own anxieties, our own fears. And that can be difficult because when we are afraid, it actually sucks the blood out of the frontal part of the brain, which is the intellect, right? The logical, the deterministic brain. And that we can go through and we can measure and we can start to determine, hey, based upon and anticipate based upon the given evidence, this is what I would expect of some sort of output based upon my input. But when that blood is stripped from that front part of the brain into the rear brain, well, that's fight or flight. That's just react, straight up react. And this is why so much of the media is about fear, 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 just fear porn, if you'd like. And as people, we can't help but to magnify our own focus. We just can't help it. Can't help but to move in the direction of our focus. And if we can't help but move in the direction of our focus, well, there's this idea that questions are the steering wheel of the mind. And if there's anything that it seems that the news agencies are pretty good at, is getting you to question whether your neighbor is a good person. And if you start distrusting your neighbor, well, what did it say here? If you don't trust the people, you make them untrustworthy. That's not just for government officials. That's in every capacity. So we're going to start perceiving them as untrustworthy. We're going to treat them as if they're untrustworthy. We're going to project that energy onto them, and then they're going to likely react in a way based upon our behavior that's going to validate that, and things just get worse and worse and worse. And then it goes on to say the master doesn't talk, he acts. And somebody say, well, how can you can't really operate very well without talking? Well, so there's a bit of a double entendre to that idea of he talks. It means that when he's talking, he's also performing an action. He's not just talking to talk, he's talking to use words as a tool. Somebody asks, he answers, right? He's not just talking just to pontificate, just to be a blowhard. He's talking specifically to solve a problem or to execute a function. And so he doesn't talk, he acts. He walks the walk. And even while talking, he's walking even if he's standing still, because his talking, his speaking, and this can be a she as well. I'm saying he because that's my model of the world, or I'm a dude. So, again, we can't help but project our model of the world onto the world. And so I wanted to share that with you. And, I'd love your thoughts on that. When we distrust the people, we make them, distrustful, right? When we don't trust them, we make them untrustworthy. And what happens when we come from a place of trust? Now, that doesn't mean naive, right? We're still going to lock our doors, right? Sure. We're not going to give the, trust doesn't mean that you open yourself up to being violated just simply because you want to trust people. But it means that if somebody comes to you and asks a question, well, we don't necessarily have to come from a place of cynicism, right? And even if there's good cause to be cynical, the people who love, who are the most difficult to love are the ones who need it most. And not that you necessarily need to, kill yourself or rack yourself over loving the people who are the hardest, but you might also find that that is the biggest reward, is coming from being able to help love people who really are extremely difficult to love. So again, I'd love your thoughts. If you like the Tao Te Ching as much as me, I'd love to hear if you've, thought about that, at all, right? There's 81 different, verses or chapters, and it's real deep, real rich. There's doesn't really add filler words. And again, it's there to be intuited. So that means that my intuitive approach, may approximate yours, but it probably won't be an objective truth. Could be, perhaps, but I suspect it wouldn't be. There's something deeply personal about intuition. But the great thing about it being a model is that I understand that it's a map. Right? When I build a model of the world, if we understand what it is we're projecting onto the world, and we can, start to, take power over it, seize it, just like we're looking at a map. And before we had GPS, we had a map, right? And I guess technically GPS is still a map, and the map itself is not the territory, right? The map allows us to travel from one destination to another, right? The model of the world allows us to travel from one place to another, and to be able to start approximating, hey, this is what I'd expect if I was, traversing in my desired path. And when we see, what comes to us, right, in response to our actions, well, then we can start to determine whether this is a useful map for us. And if it is, and it benefits us, and gravy if it benefits everyone around us, right? That's the most highest vibrational, map right there, is going to be, not just helping ourselves, but also helping others. And yeah, just wanted to share that, share the wisdom of the Tao as, I see it. And, I hope that, adds some value in your life. I certainly encourage you to go read or listen to the audiobook, the Tao Te Ching. The one that I like so much, I can go ahead and put the link in the comments, so that way you can also have access to it. And, well, I'm going to sign off. So may love and truth always guide your path. Love it. Take care.